Hey, let's talk about work. You know, that thing that takes up a huge chunk of our lives. But here's the real question. Is it actually fulfilling? Today, we're diving into a really cool way of looking at our jobs, our talents, and how sometimes just one really deep conversation can literally change everything.
Most people aren't terribly fulfilled in their work. I mean, that's a pretty blunt statement, right? But if we're being honest, it probably rings true for a lot of us. We pour hours and hours into our jobs, but that feeling of real, genuine joy, that purpose, can feel like it's always just out of reach. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to tackle the problem of the unfulfilled worker. Then, we'll see how a single question sparked a game-changing idea. After that, we'll get into the working genius model itself, and finally, we'll watch it all click into place with a great story.
Okay, so let's get right into that big problem. Why are so many of us just not happy at work? It's a massive question, and the answer really starts with a couple of basic truths. The whole idea here is built on two simple truths that, well, you can't really argue with. First, people are just plain happier and better at their jobs when they're using their natural gifts. And second, teams that are actually set up to let people use those gifts, they're way more successful. It just makes sense, right? These two ideas are the bedrock for everything we're about to talk about.
So if we all kind of know this is true, that leads to the million-dollar question, why haven't we fixed this yet? I mean, we've got all these personality tests and productivity hacks, but there's still this huge gap between the theory and what we actually do day in and day out.
And that is where things get interesting, because the solution didn't come from some high-level corporate retreat. Nope, it happened almost by accident when a moment of total frustration led to a powerful, clarifying conversation. You see, the person who came up with this model was feeling the exact same thing a lot of us feel. He loved his industry, his company, his team, but he was still getting so exasperated all the time. He was right there in the trenches, trying to figure out his own puzzle of work and happiness. And then came this moment, the moment it all changed. Someone just looked at him and asked, "Why are you like this?" Now, it wasn't an attack. It was a real, honest-to-goodness question. And that simple, direct inquiry, that deep dive question, was the spark that lit the fuse for a whole new way of thinking. And just like that, out of that one question, a solution was born: the working genius model. It's a tool that's just as much about who we are as it is about what we do. So what is it exactly? Well, it's not just another personality quiz. It's a really practical framework that looks at the 6 basic activities that have to happen for any work to get done. The model says that for each of us, 2 of these are our working geniuses, the stuff that gives us energy and joy. 2 are our working competencies, things we're okay at, but they don't really fire us up. And the last 2? Those are our working frustrations, the tasks that just drain the life out of us. And when people figure out their specific geniuses, the results are pretty incredible. They start finding way more joy in their jobs because they can finally put a name to what they love to do. It even helps them understand their spouse or their kids better. And for businesses, this is huge. They're able to reorganize entire teams, putting people in roles that actually align with their natural gifts, making everyone happier and way more productive. You know, the best way to really get a handle on a model like this is to see it play out in real life. So for our last section, we're going to jump into a story from the book, a fable about a guy named Bull Brooks and his own journey with work. So let's see how all these concepts, frustration, joy, natural talent, show up in the life of our main character. So we meet our guy, Jeremiah Octavian Brooks, but everyone just calls him Bull. And right off the bat, we learn this amazing little detail about him. His initials are J-O-B. With a name like that, you have to wonder if it was fate, right? Bull even says it himself, that with his identity literally spelling out job, it's no surprise he's been wrestling with the idea of work his entire life. And growing up, he was surrounded by 2 totally opposite views on the subject. On one hand, you had his mom. For her, running the household was her work, and she found a real purpose and joy in it every single day. But his dad? For him, work was just a duty. It was a thing you had to do to pay the bills. Period. And this one line from his dad, wow, it just captures a whole philosophy, doesn't it? If it was fun, they wouldn't call it work. It's a perspective so many of us have heard, this idea that work is supposed to be a grind. Fun isn't even in the picture. And this all comes to life in this simple memory of mowing the lawn. For his dad, it was his favorite part of the weekend. But for young Bull, it was absolute torture. And he could never figure out why.
He loved his dad, but this one activity just filled him with this deep frustration. You might even call it a working frustration that would follow him for years and years.
And that brings us right back to where we started. Just like one curious question sparked this entire model, Bull's story makes you wonder, could a deeper conversation with ourselves about who we really are and what truly energizes us be the key? What if one simple insight could totally reframe a lifetime of frustration and unlock the joy we've all been searching for?